Well done to this person. You left a gloriously normal comment last week, and in doing so you won yourself a free game. All you need to do each and every week is leave a lovely comment below, and make sure you tickle a few likes on some other ones, and hopefully the cream will rise to the top. We've got a nice little mix of sales this week. Some of them are in all the regions and some of them aren't, but I've also noticed a weird phenomenon, it's a good word that, isn't it? Whereby Australia used to get all the sales that are in the EU, but you don't anymore, so that's a bit odd. Anyone know why that is? Let me know in the comments. Alright, what are the best games on sale this week? Well, my name's Mark Walker. If you enjoyed the channel, let me know. Now, let's find out. First up, we have the Portal Companion Collection at 66% off until March the 7th, which takes it down to £4.58. That is a proper bargain. That really is a good price. You're getting both Portal 1 and 2, which are classic games, but they're not classic in the sense that they're old. Well, I guess they kind of are old now. They took the puzzle genre into a first-person view using the Valve Source engine. It's got some really unusually good writing for this style of game, and you're trying to solve various environmental puzzles using those titular portals. This represents lots of science and progress on the part of Valve. Don't worry, once you play the game that will make sense. And for what, just under £5? That is such a steal in terms of price, value, and the amount of content that you're getting there, and the fact that it runs well on the Nintendo Switch. This one didn't launch in a state, which is quite a rare thing to be able to say, and it's also one where it took me a while to pick this one up back in the day, and then when I did I was like, oh my goodness, why didn't I get that sooner? So yeah, if it tickles your fancy, grab it on this ridiculous price. As I say, that sale goes on until March the 7th. Then one of my favourites, it's Beyond a Steel Sky, which was, I think, my first physical finish on Switch, if you know what I mean. I've always been a digital collector, in air quotes. Let's be honest, you're not really collecting anything, are you? You're getting a license. But the Beyond the Steel Sky was like my first physical, and I really did enjoy it. Now, if you like adventure games of old, point and clicks and things like that, this takes it into a more modern, well, I guess, style in terms of it being fully 3D. You controlling the character from a third-person perspective, and look, I think it ends a little bit abruptly. Like I do think it kind of ended before I was ready for it to end, but that might be more of a fact that I was just enjoying it so much. It doesn't really do the thing where you're scratching your head for weeks, you know. Back in the day, you didn't have the internet to check for guides and stuff, so you would just be stuck forever. Like, I don't think the puzzles are hard enough to warrant that here, plus there's like a hint system if you do get too stuck. Still, the writing's just as good as it always was, really is funny, and it'll have a lot of the voice actors that you remember from back in the older game. Now, Beyond a Steel Sky is 70% off, taking it down to £10.49, or your regional equivalent. All the prices at the bottom of your screen. Next up, we've got Maglum Lord. Now, I'd played through, I'd say about 60% of this one because we were planning on doing a review when it came out, but as is so often the case, something came up and it never happened. Now, it's just £11.54 at the moment, which is 67% off, and I remember playing this and thinking, this is a bit odd. Like, it's lots of different genres kind of mashed to one. On the one hand, you can look and be like, hang on, is that a visual novel? And then you're like, actually, no, it isn't. It's got those action battles. And it is. It's like a hybrid action RPG / fighting game. It's got a really in-depth crafting system whereby you can craft hundreds of different weapons. And by attacking the weaker enemies, you build up this bar that then allows you to do these massive, devastating attacks. It's a really cool game, and I just didn't expect it. I think it's a shame that we didn't get to do a full review. I think personally, if I was just off the cuff giving it a score, it would be about 70%-ish. It doesn't quite reach the greatness of some of its contemporaries. I think that's due in part to, like, some of the pacing is a bit wonky, but actually when you get down to business, and also it does want that thing where, like, you get some really long cutscenes, but once you're invested and you get to the combat and things like that and the crafting, it actually gets really good. This one has a download size of 4.9 gigs, and that sale only goes on for a few hours, so yeah, you want to grab that one quickly. Here in the EU, you can pick out the excellent Huntdown, which is down 80%. This was quite a surprise to us. We actually played through this one, Glen and I, in co-op, local co-op, from start to finish. It feels a bit like, you know, the film The Warriors. You have to go from gang to gang, taking them down. You play as like two, I think it's police, and there are different characters to choose from. It's got a cover mechanic, so you can hide behind things, and then you pop out a cover, do a few shots, and then pop back. Loads of different weapons to find, and there's a bit of strategy as well when you're playing in co-op to decide who chooses what weapon. And then you get to these disgraceful boss fights that just annihilate you, or at least I know the last one did. There's also a few references to pop culture. There's like one of the bosses is like Randy Savage or something. Yeah, quality. It was Randy Savage, wasn't it? That was the wrestler. Am I losing my mind? Yeah, not sure. But Huntdown, as I say, in the EU at least, 80% off till February the 25th. Doomsday Hunters, one of the most addictive games you can possibly find on the Nintendo Switch, is 30% off all the way until March the 15th. This is a cracking game, I really did enjoy it. The art style kind of reminded me of Chaos Engine, which was a classic back on the Amiga. It's that isometric perspective, traditional now in the sense that I guess like there's a traditional roguelite style. I would call something like Hades like a traditional roguelite, and this uses that same style, but it has some nice meta progression, so you are unlocking new characters, new things from the hub area, and then you can go on more runs. I'd like to see them add a little more content to this. It's not the most challenging one in terms of reaching that end boss and beating them, but it really is very well made, slick, it's enjoyable, and certainly if you can grab it at this price, it's worth picking up. Then we have Battle Chasers Nightwar. I say when we reviewed this when it first came out, for some reason I thought it was pronounced Nightwar rather than Nightwar. So yeah, that was a thing that happened. Now, this is, again, a bit of a hybrid. You've got your turn-based combat that is very reminiscent to something like Final Fantasy VII. Then you've got the overworld map that you can move around and do different bits and bobs. There's a little town there where you can get some different weapons and stuff. The only thing with this one, and actually I saw a nice tweet the other day, and this guy was talking about JRPGs, and he was like, do you know what? I think I might be the only person that likes grinding in a JRPG. And then he had like thousands and thousands of people were like, no, I enjoy that as well. So if you're someone that enjoys grinding, the end of this one does get quite grindy, I think. And whenever I say quite grindy for this, someone's in the comments saying it gets very grindy. It gets very grindy. But if you don't mind that, I really enjoyed this game. I thought it was a really well presented package. It has that look of almost like a comic book, and I believe it is based on the comic book. So yeah, well worth checking out if you like this style. That's 70% off in the EU regions until February the 25th. Another one over here, I'm afraid, it's Trinity Trigger. Now that's 60% off, taking it down to £17.99. This is going to be for a very specific person. Now, well, maybe two specific people. The first is someone that just likes old school action RPGs and is happy with the visuals being just okay, but just enjoying the fact that it's also trying at least to be a little bit different in that you have multiple characters during the combat sequences and you'll need to switch to some of them. There is an AI system where they can fight as well, but they're pretty darn stupid, which is annoying. But I played most of this in co-op for the review, so I think I kind of missed just how stupid they can be. So yeah, if you're someone that likes co-op, this is cracking. You can do 3 people at the same time, which is very rare, I would say, for an RPG, but it doesn't set the world on fire in terms of doing anything particularly new. Even the storyline is pretty generic. Well, I say generic, it's absolutely bonkers, you know, you've got these different gods fighting and you play as like an embodied weapon that arrives on the planet. Yeah, hence the triggers. And you can actually switch between your weapons on the fly as well. You can like switch into your bow, and yeah, I thought it was really good, but I guess it's worth just noting those few things if you're considering picking it up. It's 60% off though, down to $17.99 as I say, here in the EU until February the 28th. Now I have just left the front room where my daughter was playing Snake Pass. So that is our kids pick of the week, but I really like this and I know some people really don't. I think the thing with Snake Pass is it has a really unusual control system. There are actually 2 different control methods, and I think when you change it or at least tweak some of the controls, it's a lot better. You can hold a trigger or something and then like grip onto items and slow down, and by doing that it's much easier, but you really are like controlling the head with one analog stick, and I can't even remember if it's momentum with the left, but there's loads of hidden items in the stage and it is difficult, but once you've got the controls dialed, it's brilliant. I had such a good time with this. This came out all the way back at the start of the Nintendo Switch's life cycle. It was one of the first games to run on the Unreal Engine, and I was like, wow, look how good it looks. Now it's an absolute blur. It's a bit of a blur fest, but you know, the gameplay is there. So yeah, if you want a nice little cheap and cheerful pickup that involves a happy snake, it's not a scary snake, then 80% off for Snake Pass until March the 4th. I don't think Shakedown Hawaii needs quite as much attention given to it in terms of knowing what it's about. You're looking at an old school GTA clone brought into the modern era with some of the mechanics that you'd find in a new school GTA game. Things like taking over parts of the city, building up your empire. Glen did the review of this one, absolutely loved it, and that was at full price. Down 80% at the moment to £3.59. That's just ridiculous. Definitely one to consider if you want a bit of nostalgic style gameplay, but actually it just holds up to this day. It really is an easy to pick up and play experience. That sale goes on until March the 6th. Then we've got Lake. Now this is probably going to be a new one for a lot of you. It's 25% off at the moment. It has only just released on the Switch, but it's quality. Now if you have Game Pass, you can actually play it for completely free on Game Pass and maybe try it out. But if you don't, the basic premise is that you arrive to this new little town. If you like things like Life is Strange, it has a bit of that, I don't know, the everyday in it that those games kind of encapsulate. But this one's set in 1986, and you play as a 40-something woman called Meredith Weiss. I think it's Weiss, her name. And she basically leaves her career in the big city, goes back to her hometown, and takes on the role of the post woman, I guess. You drive around delivering people's mail, and you're filling in for her dad. So he's the postman, and then, I don't know, I can't even remember why he's not there, but you take over that role for a couple of weeks, and that's where the game's set. I do love things like this. You know, things like Firewatch, where you go into a role that you never even thought about, and it ends up really captivating you in terms of its narrative. And then at the end of it all, do you go back to that day job, or do you stay out in the tranquility? I know which one I would choose. It's not the longest, it's about 6 to 8 hours. Actually, I guess for this style, that's about bang on the money. The sale for that goes on until March the 7th. Right now, you're looking at about £13. The delightful Touryst is 30% off at the moment here in the EU. This is like a top-down isometric adventure game set on a series of different islands, but with some really unusual goings on. Now, when I first played this, it's from Shinen Multimedia, the guys that bought you, what's that racing? Is it Farstar MX? And it's got a very quirky feel to it. There are some boss fights thrown in, which kind of come out of left field, but I love that art style as well. And there are loads of little mini games. One of them you have to do some surfing. There's a beach party going on, and you have to kind of help facilitate that. And it includes all those little things that games forget about. Like if you see a deck chair, you can like lie down and just chill. I love stuff like that. If you find the arcades, you can go in there and play, and you paddle around in your little boat. Quality game, really do enjoy it. As with quite a few of these, you will find full reviews, so you can go check those out. I'll try and pop any links down in the description. But that one is 30% off, as I say, in the EU until March the 4th. Before we look at some Savaloys, we will have one last sale, one that's definitely in the US region, and I think it's the very underrated Dragon Ball Z Karkarot, plus a new Power Awakens set. Now, if you're not familiar with this one, it essentially takes Dragon Ball Z and turns it into like the open world adventure games that you'd find in other genres. That includes your main quests and side quests as well. And I think it was Asdin that reviewed this for us way back, but he thoroughly enjoyed it. I think a lot of people didn't really even approach this because they thought, oh hang on, it's Dragon Ball Z, not my cup of tea, it's going to be one of those Naruto fighting games. But there is a lot more here than initially meets the eye. This obviously includes a ton of DLC content as well, and the new Power Awakens set is some separate boss fights and stuff like that. For $14.99, that's 75% off. I actually think this might be a nice little hidden gem for some people to potentially have a look at. Go check out the full review. Then that takes us on to our Savaloy Selection, and there's a bit of a theme here. It's like the SteamWorld theme. You've got SteamWorld Heist at 90% off, down to £1.49. Have a day off, not too shabby at all. Then you've got SteamWorld Dig 2, which is a Metroidvania. That's just $2.99 at the moment. That's 80% off. A really cracking Metroidvania, I have to say. A little bit on the short side, but very, very good. And finally, Brother, A Tale of Two Sons, which is getting a complete remake, or remaster at least, on another platform. But right now, just $3.77, 80% off, a lovely game. I've finished this one a couple of times, but I've just thinking about it now. I've never played through this one with my daughter because she wasn't old enough when I first got this. But I think she'd really appreciate that at this point. So yeah, I think we're going to, it only takes about, like 6 or 7 hours? I think we might start that this afternoon. As for avoids this week, and I just want to mention it because it's just reminded me that once Glen did a review of this, and and you should definitely check it out. It's Go Fishing 3D. It holds legendary status on SwitchUp. It's one of the funniest reviews you will ever watch in your life. So if you need some tickling, yeah, I'll pop that link in the top of the description. Go check it out. It's Glen suffering badly for his passion of SwitchUp. But yeah, nice one. Go watch it. I bet some of you will buy it. Don't buy it. And that's it for another week. Congratulations, as I said at the start, to the winner. If you want to be in the competition each week to win a free game, just leave a comment down below and like someone else's so the comment goes to the top. Save money on any of these games. Don't pay full price on digital or physical games. There are loads of links down there to save you a bit of bunts. Thank you to our Patreons and our members and all of you that enjoy the content. For all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!